Hey, so welcome back. I've been trying this Manitou Mara inline on my Trail 429 Enduro version. Enduro version is just, it comes with a Fox Float X and as rear shock, and it's bumped up to 140 mils travel in the front. The 120 mil travel bike in the rear. So the Float X, in my opinion, is honestly kind of overkill for this bike. You don't really need it. It would be fine just running the regular Fox inline. So the reason why people run piggyback shocks, such as the Fox Float X or any other kind of piggyback shock, it's just more oil volume. So it runs at cooler temperatures, especially during repeated downhill runs, and you're just eating all those bumps up. This bike, you're not gonna be racing gnarly enduro tracks on it, maybe like a weekend sport class race or something like that, but it's kind of overkill. And with that, I think that this particular shock, the Fox Float X on this pivot, on this model of pivot, is way too harsh. So much so that I sent it back to Fox, thinking that there was a problem with it. They looked it over, and even though it was out of warranty, they warrantied it, warranty repaired. So new air can seal, rebuilt the whole thing, new oil, everything, just rebuilt it all. Said it had a correct tune. I don't know what they did, which kind of bumps me out. They were great to deal with. They call you, they ask you what's going on, you type it in. They're wonderful to deal with. I'm glad that they warrantied it, so it didn't cost me anything, even though it was like a couple months out of warranty past a year. So kudos to them on that. However, I wish they would have told me if they found anything or if there's something wrong, or if they put, because I had reduced the volume spacer in there to a 0.6. It came with like the second largest on there, which makes this bike insanely progressive. And I think that that's a problem too, is that this particular shock does not get enough stroke to warrant it being a piggyback in the first place, and to have it be that progressive, it just feels harsh. So I bumped it down to a 0.6 spacer, which it started feeling better. So I don't know, without opening it up again after it came back from Fox, if they put the normal volume spacer, it comes back in with this thing. It rides kind of like it did. I did the first ride back on it yesterday, but I don't know. Anyways, I bought this from Manitou. It wasn't sponsored. I bought it as a replacement so I could still ride my bike and just try something different. I heard some really good things about these Manitou shocks. The reason I didn't go with the Mara Pro, which is their piggyback version, and it has a little bit more adjustments on it, has low and high speed rebound, or low and high speed compression plus rebound, and these are super tunable anyways. The reason I didn't go with that one as a comparison to the Fox Float X is that one's more of a comparison to the Fox X2, which is their big enduro air shock or downhill air shock. So they don't really have anything in between, kind of where this Float X would sit. So I went with the regular Mara, and it is great. It changed the way that this bike feels phenomenally. Putting the Fox back on and running at my normal pressure, and all the pressures staying the same, tire pressures, front fork pressure, everything staying the same when I tested both these back to back. Putting the Fox back on here actually made the whole bike feel more rigid, stiffer in suspension. I don't know why that is, but putting this on, the Manitou Mara goes into its travel real easy. So it's real supple right off the top on just like small hits. It actually gets more traction with this bike than the Fox does. And I hate to say this, but it has a more coil-like feel. It's not a coil feeling shock, but it has that small bump compliance, and that it's real easy to get the shock started into its initial part of its travel. Fox seemed to, even though talking to guys at Fox, they say it comes with a fairly light compression tune, but I ran it maybe one click of compression from open, or I just ran it open, and it doesn't have that off the top suppleness that the Manitou has. So again, this isn't tuned for this pivot at all. I bought it, put it on. It's off the shelf stock. I didn't reshim it. I didn't do anything to it other than put it on the bike, and it made this bike feel light years better than it does. Which is truly saying something for this Manitou. Again, in the Mara Pro, it would be a better comparison on a bigger bike with an X2 or something like that. But if you're looking for an inline shock to replace one, I would highly recommend this. It runs lower volume pressure. In the Fox, I run about, I'm 180 pounds, so I run about 184 to 186 kitted up. I dropped it down to like 182 just to see if it felt any better. This I run 148. I'm going to have a couple other people try this out with the same bike just to get their opinions on it. But if you're looking for a replacement shock or you want to go for something a little bit different, I would definitely recommend the Manitou, the Maras. And all things being considered equal, or, you know, if you're looking at the regular Fox Inline, it's going to be a little bit smaller shock. It's going to be a little smaller air volume can, a little bit smaller diameter in the shaft here. This comes really close to actually being the size of the Float X. Their air can is just slightly smaller, and the diameter of this is probably, I don't know, so the diameter of this is, say, 28.03. And if you're looking at the Fox, the Float X is a little bit bigger, so it's 29.3, so millimeter difference. Air can outside, because I can't really measure the inside, but that's 43. And see, awkward how to measure this. But you get that evol, so it's got a little bit more pressure, or a little bit more volume. And that one's 47. So, but the roughly, I mean, you're getting a really decent shock here with some decent air volume. These are also highly tunable. You can adjust the shim stacks in them and whatnot. Highly tunable for you at home. So you can do a lot more than you can with the Foxes unless you have all the tools to fix them. A couple things with the Manitou that, I don't know, it's kind of nitpicky, but so this rebound knob, there's no detents, there's no clicks, there's nothing. It just kind of free floats in there, so it's kind of hard to tell where it's at. But with that, it does make some pretty good changes. It's not super drastic with each click, so you can kind of just spin it. I ran it all the way closed and backed off a quarter turn, and that seemed to be perfect. The rebound sensation on this is quite unique. It's almost like a sine wave. So when it rebounds quite fast, but then it dies off. So it's real supportive, but it's a unique feeling. I don't know how to describe it other than it's kind of, when you hit a bump, it compresses, it rebounds pretty quick, but then it kind of settles back in, and there's no bounce to it. It doesn't buck you. I've tried running it open too, like fully open. You'll get bucks then, I mean, depending on how much you weigh, but it's a unique feeling. So I wish it had some kind of detents or little clicks, but it doesn't, just so you kind of know where you're at, but it didn't seem to present that much of an issue. The other thing is that you do have some compression settings here on the switch. So it's got 5 positions. They're kind of hard to tell where they are. You can miss one. They are super active. They do stuff. There's not a full lockout in here. However, I think if you got in here and messed with the compression shim stack, you could make it fully lock out. I left it fully open in compression. Mostly I just do that. I don't really tend to mess with it that much. I did play around with it while I was on the trail and just see the difference. So there is a noticeable difference in between the 4 or 5 settings here. And then I don't know if you can see, so right here, there's a little grub screw. And you can adjust the detent on these with that little grub screw. So when I first got it it was kind of, you just couldn't really tell where it was. Slightly, you could feel slight detents in it. So you can take that grub screw, which is kind of a neat feature, and just depending on how you want to run it. If you want something real quick to throw on and off all the way back, you can back those detents off, and while you're on the bike, it's real easy to move. Or if you want a noticeable difference in between where the compression dials are, you can set that. So yeah, I'm super glad with the purchase. It's kind of expensive. I think it was like $475 for this. So it's not bad. Not a bad price if you're looking for something different. You will notice some sound coming out of it when you ride. It's kind of that sound coming out. It's because I use shim stacks in here, and it's the oil bypassing those shim stacks back and forth when you're circulating the shock. Once you get the right pressure, it's not noticeable all the time. It's just usually on big hits. My front fork has the same sound on it, so it actually kind of muted that, and I heard this, but after you get used to riding it, it's not really the big deal. So yeah, highly recommend it. So when I did test it, I went to StarPass here in Tucson. There's a little track that's about a mile long, and it's got a good climbing portion up there with some nice square hits on it. Nice little rough downhill with some drops and stuff. It's, you know, a blue trail, but it's real quick for me to do laps and change the pressure. I started out at 160 in here, which is pretty harsh. It still felt supple and stuff, but I felt like I was really on top of the bike. I ended up at 148, so, and just, you know, modifying the rebound a little bit. And then I took this back out, ran it again. The other thing I noticed here is I don't get hung up on those square edge hits. It's real nice. And it also made the whole bike feel softer. So I don't know why that is. I said that the flocks made it feel stiffer. Running a decent amount of compression on here that's recommended by Pivot, this thing would get hung up on square edge rocks all the time and stop you. So I just backed off the compression, and it seemed to work fine. Anyways, thanks for checking it out. If you have a chance to ride one of these, go get one. They're well worth the money. So have a good day.